Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm glad that we were able to get together early in the day rather than late in the day, because I know how these all-day meetings can be. It can get a little tough, especially after lunch. You start slowing down a little bit. So I have a lot of information to share with you, and I'm glad that we have a chance to do it in the morning, where I hope that I'll have a little bit more of your attention. This is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the relationship, either actual or non-existent relationship, between small business owners and their bankers. As Brian mentioned, I've been involved in small business for over 40 years. And I've known hundreds of individual entrepreneurs, and I've worked with thousands of them. I've presented before thousands of them. So I really know them very well. These are my peeps. This is my constituency. This is who I speak for. These are people that I'm trying to help design the life of their dreams and actually succeed and create what they're trying to do and make it happen. Entrepreneurship is a much more difficult thing to succeed at than you even can imagine until you get involved in it. So I speak for them. I try to be their voice. So if I say anything to you today that you find a little irritating or offensive, allow me to apologize in advance. Because as I say, what I really want to do is help you understand them, so that you can better serve them and get more of their business. I have a model I call courting the customer, which has to do with using almost the same approach that you would use to court a member of the opposite sex or the same sex or whatever you're into. There's a standard way that human relationships are initiated and developed and nurtured and grown over time. And I want to share that with you and talk to you about how you can use that to build your book of business. And I want to wrap up with authority positioning for business bankers. That's what this whole presentation is about. And I want to start, we're going to come back to authority positioning, as I say. This is what this whole presentation is all about. But before I get off on a tangent, I want to start with giving you some insight into what authority positioning is. Authority positioning is a form of personal branding. Each of us, whether we know it or not, has a personal brand. When other people think of us, something comes to mind. I did a blog post in the recent past I called The Brand of Lincoln. We've all heard of the land of Lincoln, but we don't really think much of the brand of Lincoln. But when I say the words Abraham Lincoln to you, there are a number of things that come to mind. Tall, gaunt individual, stovepipe hat, long beard, honest Abe. There's a lot of things that you think about, and in effect, that is Lincoln's personal brand. Each of us has that. Anytime we think of any other person, the way we feel, the thoughts that come to mind, that's their brand. So that's what personal branding is. Authority positioning is a form of personal branding that positions an individual as a recognized subject matter expert in the minds of their target constituents, their target audience. So I think we all have a fairly good idea of what a subject matter expert is, an SME. It's somebody that their brand in your mind is, oh, that's the go-to person. That's the one that knows, if not everything about it, and maybe not more than anybody else in the world, they sure know a heck of a lot more about it than I do. And they're the person that I would turn to if I was looking for some expertise in a given subject area. Is everybody clear with that? Okay, great. Now, why would you care about authority positioning? Well, there's a number of great benefits that it can have for a business owner, a salesperson, any professional. The number one thing is that the clients come to you. We're going to talk about here in a little while a lot of effort that companies and individuals put into marketing. And it's a lot of outbound yada, 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 yada in an effort to try to get people to come to you. But if you're the subject matter expert and people know it, you don't have to do any of that, or certainly have to do a lot less of it. People come to you. I refer to it as fish jumping in the boat. And so you're not so much spending all this energy casting out in the water. People come to you. Because your relationship imparts higher value to your client, you're able to charge higher rates. And in your guys' case, rates is rates, So if somebody's like, well, the bank down the street's going to give me an extra, whatever it is, 1 basis point or something, you're like, okay, well, you can go with them. But of course, if you borrow with me, you get me. And that's what you're really paying for here. Also, people are less likely to question you when you're the subject matter expert. Even if they think you're wrong, they're less likely to question you about it because you're the expert. But even without that, what I have found is that I'm able to deal with much better, thank you, if you will, class of clients, and they're less likely to question me at every step along the way, which we're all familiar with. A lot of clients do that kind of thing. Now, here's a couple of examples of subject matter experts, authority, people who position themselves as authorities. Barbara Corcoran was just another real estate agent in Manhattan when she wrote a little photocopied newsletter she called the Corcoran Report and published it. And somehow or another it got in the hands of a reporter, I think this was the 1980s, at the New York Times, and they quoted her both in the headline of the article and in the article. According to the Corcoran Report, sales of Manhattan real estate are going this direction and they have done over the past 3 months. Boom. She just blew up. She was the recognized subject matter expert on the topic of Manhattan real estate. So the effect that it had on her real estate business was tremendous. But then she's further parlayed that into all the things that we know about today. This is a person you may not have heard of. His name is Marcus Sheridan. He founded a company called River Pools. It's down on the northern neck of Virginia. What he decided to do was not become the biggest or the best installer of fiberglass in-ground pools, but rather the most helpful one. Any question you have, any piece of information, anything you want to know about it, he wanted himself and River Pools to be the go-to expert on that topic. Obviously a very tight niche, in-ground fiberglass pre-formed pools. Well, he made it stick, and he has since installed thousands of pools and is, if not the largest, River Pools is one of the largest installers of in-ground fiberglass pools in the country, and he's since moved on, and now he's a big shot, and he teaches content marketing and brands himself as the sales lion. But he does it all based on the same principle of authority positioning. Now, we talked about, I just touched on that as far as what authority positioning is because I wanted you to have a frame of reference about it. But now I want to talk a little bit about your target market. And I refer to them as founder-led businesses. And the reason I use that expression is because they can take on a lot of forms. I have been involved in a lot of small businesses, sort of your typical mom and pop, bricks and mortar, banker, lawyer, not banker, but lawyer, doctor, retailer, restaurateur, bricks and mortar type of thing. But I've also been involved in what are called startup companies, kind of thing we find around here in Tyson's Corner. I spent a lot of time here in the late 90s and early 2000s as the CEO and founder of a .com company that blew up along with a lot of other companies. But they have a lot of things in common. Whether it's a growth business, which would be a .com style business, a lifestyle business, which is your typical mom and pop, independent business started on their own or purchased from somebody else, franchise business that they purchased. Whether it's a virtual business or a physical business, there's a lot of cash flow going on, velocity of money going in and out of the company. And so one of the things I wouldn't want you to discount is somebody who has a virtual company. I know a guy, he shares a co-working space with me in Old Town. The guy is as unassuming as you could imagine. He's making about $30,000 a month with an online course that he sells. And I don't know what he does with it. I don't know who he banks with, but I'm telling you, you can never be sure who you're talking to or what's going on. So they can assume all of these forms. No matter which one of these forms they assume, they have some very common challenges. And I want you to be thinking about the challenges that are facing these entrepreneurs. I mean, they are consumed with these problems. They are laying awake at night staring at the ceiling thinking about these things. And this is how you can come in any way that you can help them, as I will discuss later. They will look to you as the go-to person. Basically comes down to three main things from my perspective. It's marketing, production, and administration. If you're not marketing well, if you're not selling anything, you're not really in business. If you are selling something, once you got the problem, you got to produce whatever it is that you're selling. And then once you get to the point where you're producing a sufficient amount of what you're selling, then all kinds of other problems come in, like you got to pay taxes and you got to submit reports and you got to do all kinds of administrative tasks that you'd rather not deal with and which were not what you signed up for when you decided you wanted to be an entrepreneur. Now, Marcus Lemonis here is the prophet. People recognize Marcus Lemonis, the television star, the prophet. Okay, so he talks about people, process, and product. Well, those are all true, and you have all of these issues all within the marketing, production, and administration as well. But these are also problems that are on the minds of people, although they don't look at it the way that Marcus does. And he does a great job of cutting through and getting right to the heart of the problem. Now, relative to what you guys do or what you're thinking is the main area of expertise that I would suggest you help them with, it's money. So when they're early on, they're looking to raise money and they need money for startup capital, working capital, whatever. Over time, if they do actually begin generating money and there's this velocity of cash flow through their business, they have to figure out how to manage it. And then over time, if they actually are profitable, which the vast majority of small businesses are not profitable, and what ends up happening is they start pulling money out of their retirement, they start pulling money out of their home equity, they start pulling money from everywhere they can. They don't blow up all at once. It's a long, slow fizzle until it's just a disaster. And many times people lose their families, they lose their marriages, they lose their homes, they lose everything. And this is not some sort of a me trying to rub salt in the wound. This is a reality that's faced by over 80% of entrepreneurs. Sooner or later, their business is going to come to an end, and almost invariably, it's not going to be pretty. They need help. Now, how do they view you guys? Not very well. Okay, this again is based on my own experience and hundreds of other people I've spoken to. They don't see any distinguishing factor from one bank to the next. It's, well, there's mobile banking. Well, every bank has it. It's online, but everybody's got that. Well, I'll give you this, about everybody will do that. What's the difference? There is no difference. They don't see that the brand of the bank means very little to them. They see bankers primarily as people who say no. No, you can't do that. No, you can't have that loan. No this, no that. They almost see it like a scolding type thing. Bad entrepreneur. No, you can't have that. And as far as any sort of relationship, they don't need you. They got their telephone. So this all sounds like bad news, but this is actually great news for you. I just coming to now. Anybody recognize this guy? That's it, exactly. It's Lionel Barrymore from It's a Wonderful Life, and he was the evil banker who was trying to shut down the savings and loan. So there's no reason, and television advertising I always find humorous is somebody these days that has the orange squirrel that's jumping around. I don't know. Anyway, I don't think as a business owner that does anything to help me change my mind about where I want to deposit my money or where I want to borrow my money. But why I should choose your bank is based on a relationship. Can't have a relationship with your phone. You can't have a relationship with a website. But I can have a relationship with my banker. I can have a relationship with I can say I have a banker? Wow, that sounds good to me. I didn't think I could have a banker. And so people familiar with the expression know, like, and trust? It's as a marketing expression. That's what I want. I want somebody I know, somebody I like, and I like them because they care about my business. And over time, I'll begin to trust them. And I can count on them, even if they still have to say no to my loan application, they can help me get the situation turned around. They can connect me with people and resources who can get my problem solved. And that's why I have my guy at M&T Bank, which is Brian Celebrant. And I'll have to tell you that when he sends me emails, that's the subject line of his email, your guy at M&T. And I always open it. So, and this is Brian, I'm going to do my best not to heap effusive praise on Brian. And I'm sure you guys can do your best to do the exact opposite after I leave. But he's the reason why I bank with M&T Bank. All right, so relationship, great. That sounds great, Frank. Relationship banking, never heard about that before. What do you got for us today? Well, here's what I got for you. I have something I call the customer factory marketing model. And I tried to create a model that would explain how marketing works in a systematic process, like a factory, like an assembly line. It seems very simple, something we can all understand. How could I do that? So I put a lot of time into it, and I actually have an online course called How to Build a Customer Factory. And I will send a link to Brian. It's $200, but I'd be happy to give everybody a free pass on that. And if you're interested, I think you will also learn more about not only how to market yourselves, but where the shortcomings are from a marketing standpoint for small business owners. So I want to introduce you to the customer factory marketing model, and as a way of explaining what you need to do with your authority positioning. And then I'll come back to how you do that. All right. This is, some people call it the customer life cycle. I call it the marketing assembly line. This is a series of phases of your relationship with your client or them with you. And it starts with stranger, and I will give you very specific definitions of all of these in just a moment. But what I want you to understand is we start with a stranger, somebody who doesn't know you, has never had any encounter with you, but they're not just any stranger, they're a qualified stranger. They're somebody who fits your prime client profile. You've targeted them. And then over time, what companies do is they apply tools, if you will. If you think of this as an assembly line going from left to right, they're applying, you know, where they bring in the robot and it puts on the right fender and it puts on the left fender and it does this and that. Basically, we start beating up on these people over time until they come out the other end as a customer and then a client, and I'll describe the difference in a moment. So this is a process that occurs over time, not overnight, and it's generally done through a series of soft marketing touches. So let's take a look at each one of these. Stranger has never heard of you. Now, in your guys' case, if I say I'm from M&T Bank, I get an idea what you do. But for a lot of people, individual entrepreneurs, if they're just going by their own brand, I don't know what you do. You could be a plumber, you could be a realtor. I don't know what you are. I have absolutely no exposure to you at all. And I have a relationship with somebody else elsewhere. I'm currently banking somewhere else. But again, this is not just any stranger, it's a targeted stranger. They match your client profile. Next is a suspect. Now, we are all inundated with hundreds of marketing messages on a daily basis. And as a result, we're suspicious of those messages. They have an agenda. They don't really care about me. They're telling me they care about me, but they're lying. And, you know, it could be anything from a bumper sticker to a television commercial to a billboard, anything. I'm suspicious, and you should be suspicious because you're exposed. They've just been exposed to you. Now, M&T Bank. Okay, M&T Bank. I don't really, what does it mean? There's no brand in my mind yet. But I will continue moving down. I like this because he's like, yeah, I'm suspicious. You talking to me? Yeah. Stop talking to me. I don't like your messages. Now, this person has gone from suspect to prospect. And the way they got there was you kept dripping little messages on them, like let's say SBA loans. Well, I've been looking for an SBA loan. And I keep hearing these messages from Brian or television or email or someplace that M&T Bank is great with SBA loans. So they're starting to think about it. I might do it. They're thinking about possibly going and talking to somebody at M&T Bank, but before they do that, they want to do a little online research. We all do that. So, and there's only so much control you have over what they're going to learn when they start researching online. But it's important that you know that that's what they're going to do before they pick up the phone. Now, at some point, some of these people will choose to buy. And a customer is a first-time, one-time buyer, which is great. And it's a great step in that whole process for somebody to actually break out a credit card or write a check. It shows a tremendous amount of difference of their belief over taking a free toaster or something like that. There's been experiments done where they would offer a Hershey's Kiss and a little chocolate mint side by side, and you could have the Hershey's Kiss for free, or you could have the chocolate mint for 15 cents. And 95 people out of 100 would take the Hershey's Kiss. But when they changed it to 1 penny for the Hershey's Kiss and 16 cents for the little chocolate mint, it had a big difference. It was still, a majority of people took the Hershey's Kiss, but it dropped down to about 60%. And of course the mint was much larger. There had to be a reason why you wanted to spend more. Anybody spending any amount of money is a huge hand in the air. I like you, I trust you, but right now you really need to treat me right because I just stuck my neck out for you. So that first time purchase experience is critical. It's important that they not just have an okay experience or an acceptable experience. If you want to keep them on the marketing assembly line and turn them into a client that we'll discuss in a minute, they need to have an exceptional first time buying experience. It's really important that you put a lot of focus into that. Now, for example, if you guys bring them in and then you end up handing them off to somebody else as a customer service rep, I'm not really sure how the relationship works. But if you're not going to be the person that they're going to be speaking to on a regular basis going forward, You need to introduce them personally to whoever it is that they're going to be speaking to. And you need to tell that other person, this is Mr. Jones, and he's in the plumbing business, and he's just opened an account with us, and his family works in the business, and what we're looking to do is to help him to do this, this, and this, and this, so that Mr. Jones really feels like they do care. It's not just that one person, they all care. And then the assistant says, Mr. Jones, I'll take care of you. And then you say, if you ever have any problem, I've told her to give you the gold glove treatment. If you ever have any problem, call me at any time. And then keep them on the marketing assembly line. Your ultimate objective is a client, which is a source of repeat and referral business. This is somebody that is your gold standard for the ultimate objective of your marketing efforts. And you, again, want to keep them on the marketing assembly line. You still want to keep touching them. You still want to keep dripping information on them. You still want to make sure that they always feel like you think they're important. Okay, so we were just looking at the customer life cycle here. And we talked about all these different stages. I want to stop for a second and see if anybody had any questions or comments. Okay. But exactly how do you do that? I mean, that sounds great. But how do I get somebody from, I never heard of you, to here's my check? How do you do that? Well, there's a systematic approach that marketers, successful marketers, and salespeople have used for centuries. And I'm going to explain it to you using sort of a parable. For a moment, we're going to step away from business, and we're going to talk about courting the customer. And by this I mean, and I spoke about it before, that there's a way that we court a relationship with each other. And some of us are very awkward at it. It's tough. It's tough to break the ice with a stranger. And it's tough to try to generate a new relationship over time. But if you follow this model, it'll work for you. So, we're going to court the customer, and we're going to do the same thing going stranger, suspect, prospect, customer, client. And here's the way it's going to work. I walk into a nightclub, a singles bar, and I see somebody at the corner of the bar who's a prime client for me, has all of the aspects and features that I'm looking for in a client relationship. But this is a critical stage in the relationship. Somebody has to break the ice, and it's terrifying. Whether it's business, dating, whatever it is, this is a really difficult point. And I would say to you, if you're waiting for an entrepreneur to break the ice with you as a banker, it's not going to happen. Because they see themselves as, the freshman over here, and you're the senior captain of the football team. All right? They're not going to walk up and say, hi, could I talk to you for a minute? And in most cases, of course, there's all kinds of different dating relationships these days. I'm just using the example of me as a male trying to court a female. So this is the way it goes. So I make a declarative statement. My name is Frank. And then I ask a question. What's yours? And from that point forward, I only ask questions. And I sit back and I listen. Because the people who will let you talk, you come away from the conversation thinking that person is a fantastic conversationalist. If they let you talk and talk and talk, and especially they're asking you questions about yourself or your business, and they allow you to come on, you may have listened to them more openly and freely than almost anybody else in their life. So I ask, can I buy you a drink, or whatever the situation is? Start asking questions. These are all very inane questions, all these types of things. Right. That's right. These are some super slick questions right here, buddy. Yeah, right. This is going to go great. But the point is, all I'm trying to do is get a conversation going. I'm trying to get her to engage. And it's the same thing with you, with the client, with the entrepreneur. You need them to engage in the conversation. You can't just give them a bunch of this. They don't have time for that. And I'm sure you guys have all had this happen where you say, well, I only need about 10 minutes of your time, but then once you got them talking, 3 hours later, you're still talking to them. They made the time for you. All right, so I don't want to spend too much time on this. What I do, though, is I don't want to, as we would say in sales parlance, talk my way out of the sale. End up asking a question that I shouldn't have asked or saying something I shouldn't have said and turn the whole thing around. So instead, and as you notice, we're moving along the assembly line. I asked, would it be okay if I called you? Now in this case, what I'm asking her to do is opt in, okay? But I'm not asking for an email address, I'm asking for a phone number. All right, and she can say yes, no, and it's the same way. I mean, this is the sales funnel. There are people who are going to say no at any point. Great. Let's just say for the sake of illustration, as hard as it is to believe, she says yes. And she gives me her phone number. And I say, and this is on a Monday, and I say, I'm going to call you on Thursday and see what you're doing this weekend, okay? Okay. Yeah, they always say they're going to call, but they never call. Well, then on Thursday, I call, like I said I was going to do. Wow, you know, all at once, my authority, or not authority, but my position among my peers is going up. So I say, hey, it's Frank, remember me? And then I might touch on some of the things we talked about. Oh, yeah, I remember you. You know, I asked you if I could call you and see if we could go out on Friday. How's it looking? What do you think? Again, yes, no, might work. For the sake of illustration, we'll say she says yes. And I said, I'll pick you up at 7 o'clock on Friday. Now, one of the things that's important is every time I say I'm going to do something, I do it, okay? And I keep a consistent message going the whole time. And I keep a consistent tone going the whole time. So there's no like, you know, wow, that was a weird thing for him to say. That wasn't like, you know, same way it seemed on Monday. So anyway, then I pick her up and we go to dinner and I start asking questions. It's a great restaurant, I have a good time, you know, what would you like to drink? I didn't know you liked beef, whatever it is. And then, as we're leaving there, I asked her another question. It just so happens as I'm driving her home that we're going by my place. And I say, would you like to stop in for a nightcap? Now again, she can say no, whatever. And then I, as a salesperson would do, I got to decide, am I going to go back to here and, you know, go to dinner a few more times? What's going to happen? Or I just say, oh man, I got to bail on this. I'm going all the way back to looking for another prospect. And I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just trying to show you there's a direct correlation between this and courting a customer. Now, whatever happens here, it isn't until months have gone by and we've spent a lot of time together and she's really gotten to know me well before I say, will you marry me? Right? Months, years, decades, you know. God help us, I don't know how long it's going to take. But the point is you wouldn't say that here. Okay? Does everybody agree that it takes, you want to, these types of relationship, if it's going to be an important long-term relationship between you and this customer, you can't rush the process. But one of the reasons why people avoid sales as a career is because they feel like, as I would say, they're trying to kiss the customer on the first date. So I did a sales job. I wrote a book about this, as Brian was talking about. And I had such a profound experience and successful experience as a salesperson, I wrote a book about it. And so a lot of what I'm telling you here is through my experience both in business and in sales. All right. So nobody's running screaming out of the room. Okay. How does this apply to what you guys do? Here's how we do it. Well, here's the kissing the customers. Never kiss the customer on the first date. Instead, somebody's got to break the ice. I suggest you do it. All right, but you got to have a plan of action of where you're going to go from there, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Then over time, not overnight, you drip on them with consistent, appropriate, and ongoing messages. Emails, phone calls, personal meetings, networking groups, whatever. And over the time, as we go down the assembly line, we develop know, like, and trust. And you always want to be thinking, what is the objective of my meeting with them or whatever? Don't try to go for the close right at the beginning. The ultimate objective is for them to start depositing their money with you and start doing loan apps. Don't rush it. So now we're back to the customer life cycle instead of the dating life cycle. And our objective this time is to capture a new banking client at a networking event. And here's the way it would go. Now, when I say networking event, I'm talking about something like a BNI event, which is where Brian and I met, or a Chamber of Commerce networking event, or any kind of networking event that you can think of. A lot of us hate these networking events. They seem like a big waste of time. It's a lot of sort of wallflowers, you know, we're like, I just don't want to even really talk to anybody, you know. I wish they had waiters bringing drinks around so I wouldn't have to go to the bar. But you can't do that. If you're going to go to a networking event, you need to go there with a specific objective in mind. And what I would suggest is coming away with one new relationship, somebody who's really perfect for you. And if you started out ahead of time, creating your prime client profile, knowing who you're looking for, you'll be more successful. So let's say I found somebody, again, who meets my prime client profile, but this time it's a male architect at a networking group. And I say, hi, I'm Frank Felker from M&T Bank. Let me tell you my elevator speech. A lot of banks say they're focused on helping small businesses succeed, but at M&T Bank, we back it up. We are the #1 SBA lender in the DC region and in the top 10 nationwide because we focus on making things happen for small business owners. I try to do everything I can personally to help small business owners put as much money as possible in the bank in the hope that they'll transfer it to my bank someday. If you ever have a challenge that's holding you back in any area of your business, I hope you'll call on me. I may be able to introduce you to a person or a resource that can give you the breakthrough you need. And they go, that's a lot to process. I'm not really sure what that guy just said to me, but it sounded good. And then you say, well, tell me about your business. Okay, here we go. I made a declarative statement. This is who I am. Have no expectation that they're ever going to remember anything that I said, but I'm starting to build the brand in their mind. Okay, oh, well, now you started asking them something they're interested in. For example, I do a lot of interviews. And somebody told me, a friend of mine told me, he listened to an interview I did. He said, man, you really pulled the string on that guy. And I was like, what do you mean? He was talking about a Chatty Cathy doll where you pull the string and it just starts to talk. And what I found out is that if you start asking somebody about something they're really passionate about, you can't shut them up. They'll just go, 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 go. And again, they think, what a great conversationalist you are. So anyway, I start asking them a few questions. And it's important for me to know who their clients are and what problem they solve for them. Then again, I don't talk my way out of the sale. Only spend about 5 minutes, get their business card, head out the door. Then, when I get back to my place, I send them a branded, nice to meet you email. And I can also get you guys a link to see what this looks like. And I use a system called Outstand. At the same time, I send them a branded greeting card. It's 5x7, folded over, full color on the inside and out. It's not handwritten, but it comes with a first-class postage stamp, and it just looks great and has a tremendous impact on people. So if you think about it, they met me face-to-face and heard my mind-numbing elevator speech in the morning. Then they got an email from me in the afternoon, and then 2 days later, they got a card from me in the mail. Oh, yeah, I remember that guy. The next week, I call and say, I was really interested in what you told me about your architecture practice. I was wondering if we could have coffee. Oh, okay. And you're more likely to get that because you've set this groundwork. When you get there, I'm going to show you some other questions you can ask them. But you want to start asking them more deep questions now. You're a little bit deeper into the relationship. You really want to get into the heart of it, what's going on with their business. Offer them a solution or say, I really don't know what to do about that, but I know somebody I'm going to call and I'll get back to you. And then over time, the idea is that they do finally put in a loan app with you or do something. But it's only after a period of time that they've gotten to know you and how you do business that you then say, will you refer me? Have to ask the right questions at the right time. Is everybody good with this? Okay. Now, what does this have to do with authority positioning? I want to back up for 1 second. What authority positioning will do for you is take you from here, sometimes all the way to here, without you ever having any outbound message to that person at all, a direct one-to-one. They may come to you ready to buy. They've already qualified themselves. They need a small business loan. They may have already talked to other people about it, and they're just confused. I mean, we did a podcast interview that had to do with SBA lending and how it really works. And but they keep hearing over and over again from other people, oh, if you want an SBA loan, you got to talk to M&T Bank. There's no point in even talking to anybody else. They're the subject matter expert. Okay, great. So all the marketing and all the energy and all the everything that we all do and the companies do, it's not entirely eliminated, but you're definitely to here, and sometimes you're all the way to here using authority positioning. So here's, again, just want to go back through this again as far as what it is. Positions the individual as a recognized subject matter expert in your target market. Clients come to you. You've just bypassed all those steps. You're able to charge higher rates because you're the expert. They don't want to go somewhere else. They don't want to price shop because it's not apples to apples. You're great. I have no idea who this person is over here. How long will it take me to figure out who they are and what they're really offering? And is that really worth a small change in a rate? I want to do business with you. And over time, they're more likely to just do what you ask them to do. So here's how you become a recognized subject matter expert. I should have turned this around. Number one thing is you don't call yourself an expert. Other people call you the expert based on the fact that you are a generous educator and advocate for the success of your target market. You will do almost anything within reason to help people succeed at whatever it is they're trying to do, which means it could extend beyond trying to get a loan or trying to get a deposit account. They might be trying to hire a salesperson. They might be trying to find a bookkeeper. They might be trying to find a new office space. But you always seem to be the person who has the answers for them. Napoleon Hill wrote this book. How many people have heard of this book, Think and Grow Rich? All right. And you think of Napoleon Hill as the expert. But he wasn't the expert. He was hired to go out and interview rich people, robber barons, and find out how did they become successful. How did somebody like Andrew Carnegie come to this country without 5 cents in his pocket and end up one of the most wealthy people in the world? All the other great wealthy people of the late 19th and early 20th century. So he went out and he interviewed those people. This is the kind of thing that you can do. Find out when you're talking to successful entrepreneurs, how did they achieve what they did? Think about what industry they're in and how you can synthesize this information. Now, here's a couple real-world examples. This is a guy named Russ Kreger, who's a client of mine. And I wanted to call him the dog whisperer, but of course that was already taken. He has such a profound impact on dogs' behavior, I wanted to call him the doggy llama. Already trademarked. So I just called him Russ Kreger. And we worked together to write a book called What Your Dog is Trying to Tell You. And the idea is that it's not your dog, it's you. That's the problem. You're expecting your dog to be a human, and the dog doesn't know how to do that. And the dog is expecting you to be the leader of the pack, and you don't know how to do that. So we have problems here. So that's what he did. I have another client, Dr. Gail Davis. She's a dentist, but her area of specialty is healthful living through a diet rich in raw foods and essential oils. And she's doing a lot of great stuff, gives a lot of free speeches. Russ does, the point is that these people give away a lot of free information, and it helps position them. Peter Frampton, it's not that Peter Frampton, is a client of mine who created something called color accounting, which is a transformative way of teaching accounting principles. And he just did a presentation yesterday in Vancouver, British Columbia, which was free. And also, as part of working with me, he gave away free copies of a book he has called The Color Counting Parable to people who texted in. Now, you may have heard of this person, but he looks a little different today. This was, I'm not sure when this was. This is about 25 or 30 years ago. Looks like the same suit, but I'm not sure. Anyway, this is the American Society for Training and Development, and this was an award they gave me for good works that I did. I gave a lot of presentations, free presentations, that type of thing. And part of the authority positioning, it's important to always document where you're doing something, and with photographs. And so I give a lot of free classes, like I'm doing today. I have a lot of online classes that I have given away. I do podcast interviews with successful business owners that I give away for free. I just do a lot of things to try to help people in any way I can. And what ends up happening is when somebody who's aware of me and what I do, here's a question or here's a problem that somebody's having that's right up my alley, they go, well, you got to call Frank. He knows that. He's the guy. I don't say it. They say it. So how does this all fit together for you guys? First off, in the minds of small business owners, you guys are already authorities. Problem is we don't have any access to you, or we feel we don't. We see you as up in an ivory tower sitting on a giant pile of cash, waiting for the phone to ring from a rich person. And but yet, we'd love to have you as our friend, have somebody that I could say, oh, I'll call my banker about that. Banker? You call your banker? You got a banker? When'd you get a banker? And whether it's true or not, believe me, this is how bankers are often perceived. And they're not interested in little people, just rich people. Now, I know from my experience in sales that some prospects are more appealing than others. And in your guys' business, people who have more money are more appealing than people who have less money. I understand that. But in business, sometimes people start out with no money and end up with millions. And it's hard to figure out which one's which one's which. But if you have this overall generous attitude of helping people out, you'll get a good mix. And occasionally you'll get that real whale client that you're looking for, but you have to be careful not to turn your nose up at somebody who might not be such a person. I'll never forget, I met a guy in a diner on the Eastern Shore, and he's dressed in overalls and boots, muddy boots, and he just didn't look too good. And after he left the diner, I find out this guy's worth about $50 million. He owns a bunch of farmland out there. You just never know. When I was doing the job that I had that I wrote the book about, I'd get a lead. It was a home improvement company in a bad neighborhood. And I'd think, oh man, I'm never going to sell anything in there. I'd come away with a $20,000 deal. You just never know. You never know. So that's not to say every person's going to be great, because they're not. But don't prejudge your prospects. So you're already authorities, and we'd like to connect with you. We really would. We think that you know things and people that we'd like to know. So this is why it makes it easy for you to stand out from your competition. Because not only is the perception that bankers are aloof and unapproachable correct, but in reality, that's often correct. There is a banker I know who will go unnamed, who I've known for years. And I see him at a lot of charitable events and all kinds of things in Old Town. But I do my business with Brian Celeber because Brian listened to me. Brian asked me questions about my business. Brian was seemed at least, to genuinely care about my business. The other guy, I can't get him on the phone. I mean, he and I have known each other for years. He will not return my phone calls. He's too cool for school. And that often is the case. So all you got to do is genuinely give a darn. And then reach out and break the ice in the dating analogy with these poor little freshmen who are hoping that they can get a little bit of your time. And then you have to be the one to ask for the date. You have to say, I would like to sit down and learn more about your business. Now, when you sit down with them, this is what you want to do. You want to learn everything you can about their business. You're not going to remember it all. Well, one thing that I do is I take notes, handwritten notes, and then I scan them in. And so I've got them forever. If I ever need to refer back to my notes, I don't have to wonder where they are. I organize them in a thing called Evernote, but whatever. But don't just ask questions, pay attention. We all have had a situation where somebody asks us a question, and while we're answering, they're just waiting for you to stop talking so they can tell you what they wanted to tell you. Don't do that. Listen to what they say. Take notes. Then, as we talked about before, give them those little soft marketing touches over time. I'll talk about a couple of ways that you can do that. These are the things that you need to learn about them in order to help them. What industry they're in. How big is their company? A good way, it's not only top-line sales, but number of employees is a good way to measure that. What stage of growth are they in? We'll talk about that in a minute. We talked about lifestyle business versus growth business versus virtual versus physical. And what's their competitive marketplace look like? What are they up against? Is some giant Walmart of their industry coming and crushing everybody in their path? Is technology completely turning their industry upside down as it did to me when I was in the printing industry? What are they facing? What keeps them awake at night? Businesses that are at different stages of maturity face different challenges. And so a big thing that you could find out from them is, how long have you guys been in business? Did you buy it or did you found it yourself? Tell me about the early days. And early on, they need money. They got to buy equipment. They got to pay the rent. They got to pay payroll. You guys know the deal. But also, they need marketing help. And this is not something that you guys can help them with, but you can direct them to somebody like me or a lot of other people that help small businesses do marketing. As they grow, if the marketing doesn't work, they go right out of business. I could tell you stories for the rest of the day about people who had every possible success factor in place, including money, before they got started, but they couldn't sell their way out of a paper bag and they went right down the toilet. If people aren't buying your product or service, you are not in business. But entrepreneurs don't want to think about marketing. They hate marketing. Once they've gotten past that startup phase and they're actually growing, then they have more of a problem getting business done, getting the trains to run on time, hiring and keeping good people. And at the end stages where they may be thinking about selling their business, they're thinking about leaving a legacy, perhaps with their children, which is one of the worst things you could do to your business and possibly to your family. And how are you going to transition out? So here are a few questions that you can ask. When I say what's the big idea here, what I really mean is, what gave you the crazy idea to start this business in the first place? Were you nuts? What did your wife say? What did your parents say? What did your friends say? And so that's a good icebreaker because they'll laugh and talk about how difficult it was in the early days and so forth. And then, okay, so that was your objective initially. How's that whole thing working out for you? Is it really what you thought it was going to be? And almost invariably, no, completely different than what I expected. And then you can ask them, what is the biggest challenge that you're facing today at this stage in your business? And keep in mind, all you need to do is just ask open questions. They'll talk about it, but you got to pay attention and you need to take notes. And you should come away with some sort of an action item or list of action items about what you're going to do about what they told you when the next time you meet or speak on the phone. Now, in terms of how to make this happen, you guys are in a disadvantaged position from somebody like me. I have total freedom of action. I can go out and say and do anything and ruin my brand and cause all kinds of problems. You can't do that because that would make the bank very unhappy. So we don't want that. At the same time, so you don't have the budget that the bank has to do things. And so what the bank can do is do things like an event like today, but for your clients. And be on topics. There's 6 main topics that people are looking for. One is mission, which is, why did you start this business? The next is marketing. The next is money. Next is what I call machine, which is the actual running of your business. Then it's the management of people. And the final thing is minutia, which is all the little things like getting the right LLC put together. The bank can do that. They can bring your people in, teach them how to make more money. Think about this. If you can help your clients make more money, they're going to borrow more money. They're going to deposit more money. And the money is going to flow through your bank more rapidly. Everything you can do to help them grow their business helps you grow your business. Content marketing, I don't really have time to go into, but it's another thing that's very big right now that you guys, the bank could do. And giving you guys sales and marketing tools of the time I'm about to mention here is another thing that the bank can do. What you can do, the number one thing you can do is get in the foxhole with me. Because forgive me, but at the end of this week or whenever the next pay period is, you're guaranteed that you're going to get paid. And I'm not. And that's the number one difference between entrepreneurs and people who are not entrepreneurs. And people who are not entrepreneurs don't understand what a tenuous tight wire that is to walk week after week, month after month. So even though I'm not asking you to give me your paycheck, if you can do the best you can to understand that that's the mindset that I'm walking around with every single day, I'd appreciate it. When I tell you that I can't figure something out, if you can direct me to some way that I can figure it out, a course, a class, a person, a book, I'd appreciate that. And anytime you can make an important introduction for me, like, my accountant is just, I can't believe it, what's going on with I know a great accountant. But make sure it is a great accountant. Don't just refer them to somebody you met who's another client who's an accountant. Make sure it's the right accountant, and the right accountant for the industry and the stage of growth and the size that this company is. This is something that I think is tremendously important and overlooked, especially when we think about trying to get a loan. I'm looking at my balance sheet, I'm looking at my income statement, I don't know what the heck I'm looking at. It's just a bunch of characters on a page. I don't know what that means. You could help me with that. You could show me what this income statement is telling me about my business. You could find out what the correct ratios are for the top performing businesses in my industry. Man, your cost of goods sold is way out of whack. Your payroll number is way too high. If you drop payroll by 10%, that whole 10% would go right to your bottom line, and you'd qualify for that loan. What I found is, because different industries structure their financial statements differently, manufacturing versus retail versus service, you guys are familiar with that. What you could really help me with is, you know, Frank, when you look at your income statement, the most important 2 lines are the top line and the bottom line. But in between there's 3 lines you really ought to be looking at. This one, and this one. And every point that you can knock off of any one of those is going to go right to the bottom line. Frank, as I look at your application, and I look at your tax returns, and I look at your financial statements, it's clear as day to me that the number one thing you need to do to qualify for this loan is this. And I think you can get that done in 6 months. And I'll work with you any way that I can within reason to help you get that turned around. Do you want to work with me on that? How many bankers say that to people? Nobody ever said it to me, I can tell you that. So you can actually look at anytime you have to deny an app as an opportunity. It's a great opportunity for you to get in that foxhole and show them that you care and do what you can. Now, we all know among entrepreneurs and every group of people, there's some whack jobs that you just can't work with. And they don't want to hear it and whatever. So don't waste your time on whack jobs. But if you've got somebody who's actually willing to put in the work and the time and they really are focused on their success, get in there with them. Because not only will they do more business with you, they'll turn you on to friends of theirs. So the last thing I would say is, in terms of dripping on people and keeping that consistent messaging going, it's a thing called Google News Alerts, and I have one for all of my clients and certain industries and whatever. And anytime there's a news story about one of my clients, I'm alerted to it, and I forward it on to them, and I say, congratulations, you were just written up in this, that, blah, blah, blah. Or if you had a client that's a landscaper, and you know the 30-year locusts are coming or something, you know, hey, look at this, did you know it's next year? Anything you do, it shows that you were thinking about them. It shows that you care about their business. Outstand is the system that I use where I can send both emails and greeting cards. Constant Contact's an excellent program as well. Doesn't offer greeting cards. I strongly encourage you to get involved with networking groups. It's up to you. I know it's a lot of work. I know it's a hassle. I know it's hard to get up early in the morning, but you really want to grow your business or not? That's where the entrepreneurs are if you want to talk to them, if you're willing to break the ice and ask them for a date. If you help me grow my business, I'll bank with you, and I'll borrow from you, and I'll even refer my friends to you. But if you don't want to help me grow my business, you're just another banker, and I can use my phone instead. So that's what I had to share with you this morning. Thank you very much.